So in today's video, I want to talk about one way to help enhance the performance of your application by using a technique called debouncing. As a new developer, it's completely natural to feel excited after building and deploying your very first website. But once you get past the initial rust and begin to get user feedback, one thing that really needs to be considered is the overall performance of your application. Depending upon the type of website you've built, you may run into scenarios where excessive clicks on buttons or repeated API requests to the server can cause your website to lag. This creates a poor user experience, and that's something that you definitely want to avoid. So this is where a technique called debouncing can really be handy. So first off, what is debouncing? In simple terms, it's a programming technique that limits how often a function is executed, especially when dealing with events that can happen frequently, like button clicks, typing in the search bar, or the window resizing. Debouncing can help prevent performance issues by ensuring that the functions aren't called too many times. When the user interacts with an app, whether it's typing in the search bar or clicking on the button, these actions can fire off multiple events in a quick session. Without debouncing, each event can trigger its own function, leading to performance issues, unnecessary network requests, or just an overall degraded user experience because the system is trying to handle too many tasks at once. Debouncing can solve this problem by limiting how frequently a function is executed. It's going to make sure that the function only runs after a certain period of inactivity or only once during a specific time frame. This not only optimizes the performance of the app, but also reduces the server load, making the app feel more smoother and responsive. Now that we've got the concept down, let's take a look at a couple examples demonstrating how debouncing actually works. So let's start with the simple example of button click. We're going to create a button that increments a counter, but we're going to use a debounce technique to delay the update so that it doesn't happen instantly. So within a full stack Next.js application, we have a route named debounce, and within it, we're displaying a page.js. The key things that we need within this page in order to demonstrate the debounce in action is to install the useDebounce library, which is going to give us access to the useDebounce hook. And we're also going to use some React front-end hook, useState and useCallback. So within the debounce function, we're going to start with the state variable of count and set count. These two are going to help manage the count variable that will increment by 1 each time the increment button is clicked. Next, we have a debounce count variable, which is gaining access to the useDebounce hook. Within it, it's going to take 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to represent the button that will be incremented, and the second parameter is going to represent the amount of time in which it's going to be delayed. In this case, we're delaying the count by 500 milliseconds each time the increment button is clicked. Then we have a handle click function that is going to help us update the count variable each time it's clicked. Within the return statement, we have 2 pre-built components. The first one being a page wrapper, which basically gives some structure to the page, and page text, which is displaying the heading text of our page. Then we have a button with the name of increment, which has a on-click handler that will be handling the handle click function that will increment the count variable by 1 each time it is clicked. We have 2 p tags. The first one is going to show the current count, and the second one is going to show the debounce count. And as we mentioned earlier, when we click the increment button, the count variable should update immediately, and the debounce count should be delayed by 500 milliseconds. So let's take a look at it in action. And after I click the increment button, you'll notice that current count updates immediately, and debounce is delayed by 500 milliseconds. Now, I know you're probably thinking you would prefer the increment to be updated real time. And in this particular example, it's not necessarily as detrimental to the overall project, because if a user clicked this several times, you'll notice that the current count updates immediately and the debounce count only updates after there's been a pause for 500 milliseconds. This is especially handy when the button that is being clicked is making a request to the server. You don't want that many requests to be made to the server because it could cause an overload, especially as your application grows and there are several users that are utilizing it. To show a more practical example, we have a full stack application named the Wishlist Haven that is storing personal wish list items from a user displayed in a table. We've also implemented the ability for a user to search within the table by the item name. So within our search bar component, we're going to import the useDebounce callback from the useDebounce hook. And within the search bar component, we're utilizing it within a function named handle search that takes in 2 parameters. And the second parameter that's being passed in is 300. This is representing a 300 millisecond delay in our search results. So what this means is that we have a search query that will only be executed executed after the user has stopped typing for 300 milliseconds. This is going to reduce the number of requests that are made to our server. So you may be asking, why is this important? So this is going to make sure that we don't overwhelm the server with unnecessary search requests. Debouncing the search input reduces the number of network requests made as the user is typing, making sure that the search function is only triggered after the user pauses for 300 milliseconds. This not only optimizes the app performance, but also improves the overall user experience by keeping things fast and responsive. So let's look at it in action. So let's search for Samsung. And as I typed in Sam, you'll notice that there's a slight delay in the response back from the server. This is because, as we just mentioned, we're only going to get a response back from the server 300 milliseconds after we've stopped typing. To show what it looks like in a more real-time update, I'm going to remove the delay and show you what it looks like if we type in Sam. You'll notice that it immediately updates because we no longer have the delay in place, which does make the application appear more responsive. However, if multiple users are using this website and making those requests, it can really bog down and overload the server. So as you can see, debouncing is a simple yet very effective technique to kind of help control certain actions that are performed in the application. And we've shown examples of handling a button click and also search queries. By managing the frequency at which debouncing is executed, this is going to help the application run more smoothly and provide a better user experience. So I hope you enjoyed today's quick tutorial on debouncing. If so, feel free to give me a like and consider subscribing. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave those in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Love you, man.